upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We thought all evil in some form or another. I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
Hello and welcome to the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. I'm Vicky.
I'm Rachel.
And we are back from our long hiatus.
Hey, did you miss us?
I bet you did. Yeah, it was oh my gosh, much needed break. It's not like I was less busy not doing the podcast.
You're never not busy. You're always doing stuff.
I know. And I've talked to my therapist about this and she's like, maybe you should just take on less. And I'm like, I can't. I can't do that.
Did you not see my birthday on the check-in? I'm literally a Gemini.
I always want the break, but then the break doesn't want me, I guess. I don't know.
There's just so many things to do.
Yeah, there is. I always feel like I'm complaining, but then I'm like, I'm busy doing fun stuff.
Yeah, you always do cool activities. You're not doing boring stuff. Yeah,
definitely a lot of haunted houses, corn maze.
There's a reason we take October off.
There is definitely, So, but I'm glad to be back because I also took the time to catch up on a lot of true crime stuff, and there's a lot that's been happening.
Right.
So we are just going to dive right in and head on over to the newsroom.
Fit to breathe, our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad.
This week, our story comes to us from, partly from Burlington, Vermont, and partly from Canada.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This is from the AP News. So this just happened. This is about a month ago in October.
Okay.
A Chinese woman named Wan Yining was arrested at an Airbnb in Canada. So this was reported in October, but this actually happened in June. She was getting ready to get into an inflatable kayak with a duffel bag that was filled with turtles.
Saturday night, am I right, ladies?
Yeah, so they notified the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, and the Mounties. And they do believe that there were two other people, including a man who they think is her husband, that were involved. They had started to paddle the watercraft. But her duffel bag contained 29 live Eastern box turtles individually wrapped in socks.
What?
They are known to be sold on the Chinese black market for $1,000 each, according to the affidavit. They also seized her cell phone. They found that she was trying to smuggle these into Canada. So she had like already come into Canada, but they were like moving them.
See, when you were first talking about it, I thought it was going to be like an eco thing.
No.
Like she's setting them free.
No.
I was like team one.
This is
now I'm like
turtle smuggling.
Take those turtles out of those
Full
socks.
on turtle smuggling. Yeah, they were smuggling them into Canada so they could eventually be sold for a profit in Hong Kong. So in October, just a couple weeks ago, she did plead guilty to one count of unlawfully attempting to export and send 29 Eastern box turtles out of the United States, contrary to law. Like I said, she took a plea. She hasn't gotten her sentencing yet, but she is looking at up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So.
Wait, okay. Are they like, do you know if they're like pets? Or are they for eating?
I don't know, but I'm going to be honest with you. My gut check is for eating. Yeah.
I know some people do eat turtles.
Well, and in China, I'm pretty sure that's a very common dish, like a turtle soup.
I mean, it comes with its own like bowl, so that's very convenient.
Oh my God. That's a little dark. That's a little dark. Yeah.
It's eco-friendly.
You are really trying to like have it in for this. Like you're really trying to support this woman. Yeah.
Just because at first I thought she was like an eco-terrorist, which I love.
No.
But no, she's
like the opposite. She girl bossed her way into turtles.
Into prison. Yeah.
So
do you think she's in prison sitting there feeling shell-shocked?
Oh my God. Okay, we're going to move on to Netflix and Kill. This week, it's a bit of a double feature because I feel like we have to talk about these things together. But we are going to talk about Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, as well as the Menendez brother documentary, both on Netflix.
Yes.
Came out virtually one right after the other. And wow. What a ride. Did you get an opportunity to watch these at all?
I watched the documentary.
Okay.
I did not watch the Ryan Murphy.
Okay. Yeah. So Monsters is actually the second series that Ryan Murphy has done in this vein. The first one was the Jeffrey Dahmer
Yes.
series, Monster series, which was fantastic. I am honestly a very big fan of Ryan Murphy. He does all of the American Horror Story. His most recent series, Grotesquerie, I really enjoyed. I think I'm still processing the end, but no, I really enjoyed it. And so I was really looking forward to this coming out, which cracks me up because the actor that they had playing Lyle is also
He does reuse actors.
he does. Ryan Murphy is very
He's like an outfit repeater, but an actor repeater.
Yeah, he's very loyal to the actors that work with him because especially in American Horror Story, Sarah Paulson's been in every series. You know what I mean?
Her.
Love her. Anyway, so the actor who plays Lyle is also one of the secondary characters in Grotesquerie, which I started watching almost immediately after this, and he's like the pastor character.
Yeah.
I'm like, why does he look so familiar?
I love that.
Figure it's because I just saw him in this. So anyway, so this looks at the story of Lyle and Eric Menendez, who were prosecuted and convicted of murdering their parents. This case is kind of in the forefront at the moment because
I'm sure you've all been hearing about it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if all of this is coming out just because of the timing of where they're at in the case as far as them getting resentenced, or if it was an anniversary. It might have been like a 30-year anniversary.
Yeah, I'm
something
not
like
sure.
that.
I almost think that
They normally come out around like a big event in the case or anniversaries or whatever, like this kind of thing.
It might have been like the 30-year.
Yeah, I
or
think
something
so.
like that, because I think the documentaries and stuff helped people like look back into the case and like reevaluate because they're getting paroled.
They have been recommended to be resentenced.
That's I was
where
going
they're
to ask.
at. Yeah.
I haven't looked in like the last week. There's been other stuff going on, guys.
So both the series and the documentary look at basically the murders. The series was great. Obviously, it's a fictionalized view of true events, right?
Right.
But the way I think the way that it was put together was really interesting because they sort of present it multiple ways throughout the series. And they sort of show you what happened from the boys' point of view, from their parents' point of view, from the people around them, these other people that are saying things, and you can see things start to shift. Obviously, in this case, there's also the big side story, I guess,
all
of the abuse from their father and their mom kind of knowing, and that sort of being the catalyst for why they ultimately murdered their parents. There's this phenomenal episode of Monsters. I will say it's all of this very heavy. It's very heavy.
Real heavy.
Yeah.
Real heavy.
There's this great episode of Monsters where after they get arrested, the lawyer whose name I forget that's representing them, she goes to the prison to interview Eric. And the entire episode is one long shot of him sitting at the table in the prison, like with his attorney, like in one of the conference room things. The entire episode is literally just him answering questions from the lawyer and telling her the story of the abuse.
Ooh.
One shot, and it was like beautifully acted. Like I thought it was so good. And it's a very, very slow zoom on Eric that lasts for basically 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Really, really good. So I would definitely say check it out. But the Menendez brothers documentary that came out shortly after, also on Netflix, was interesting because it featured both Eric and Lyle from prison.
That's why
Yeah. So it is the first time in 30 years that they have been able to, or that they have given an interview. And they both claim to be reformed since going into prison. They recount their
and they're together.
version of events. Yeah, after a really, really long time of being separated, they're now in the same unit. You know, it's, and of course, this is coming off of, they just put in for resentencing. The AG looked at their case, recommended resentencing. So that's kind of where it's at currently.
Yeah.
I would anticipate by the end of the year, maybe, that
looks
they
like it's pretty fast moving.
would have something. But
You never know.
they're basically talking about resentencing them to life with parole versus life without parole, and then pushing their case to the parole board to be immediately paroled. That's what they're trying to do currently.
Because I know that I had texted you because I read an article and misunderstood and was like,
it's a process.
Are they
It's not
out?
just
I
like
don't
bing, bang,
understand.
boom.
Well, I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But
So it was, I think that was also really interesting.
I liked the documentary a lot.
You know, this is such a complicated, like, thing. And we've talked about this a lot with, like, Gypsy Rose and the idea of abuse being present in a crime like this and what that means as far as the actual act and what the punishment should be and how much accountability should they have for that. And that's a large part of why they're like looking at resentencing is because
there's no doubt that they committed the crime, but it's like, do they deserve life in prison? And I'm on the side that I think should go home.
The question is, do we believe the allegations of abuse?
I do.
And is that, I think we talked about this, that was like evidence that was not weighed as heavily in the 80s as it is
and
now.
Stuff that wasn't submitted.
Right.
More people have come forward and, as the boys have grown. Yeah, totally.
And I think like in Gypsy Rose's case, the evidence was much more obvious. It was much more evident that this was all happening. Like there was, especially because she was like swindling charities and stuff. Like there's a much more paper trail with all of that stuff.
Whereas with this one, it's a lot more anecdotal, but there's a lot of it. Like,
so I do recommend both of these. I think they're both very interesting. Like I said, very heavy. So like pick the right time to watch them.
God, some of the details that I read are awful. Awful.
Yeah. But also they murdered their parents. So like,
it's a complicated case. This case is complicated. I'm on the camp, if we're giving opinions. I think they went to jail. They served their time. They both said that they were happy in prison because they were able to make decisions for themselves and nobody was abusing them. And now I feel like as long as they have somewhere to go, I think they should be able to go home. Like, as long as they're being monitored, I'm like, I don't see, like, they don't have any, like, records of, what is that? Like, they didn't do anything bad in
like
prison.
Previous record.
Yeah. They've been peaceful in prison, and I think that kind of matters.
I go back and forth on this because I am very much in the camp of I would like to believe that people can change and reform in prison, although our prison system is not necessarily always set up for that, but that's like a different conversation. So I would like to believe that, right? The thing that for me that kind of catches me is they have been in prison since one was like 18 or 19 and the other was in their early 20s, 21.
It's been a long time.
So everyone who is saying to me like they're going to come out and be fine and they're not going to offend and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it's really hard for anybody to know what is going to happen when they get out. Because
that's a very good point.
They have spent 0 of their adult years out in the free world.
That is a good, I didn't think about it like that.
I'm not saying that I am expecting them to do something. I'm just saying it's hard to judge what's going to happen.
Well, even like, I mean, you mentioned earlier Gypsy Rose. I mean, she's had some
wild, the paternity test. It is her fiance's, by the way. Did you see that?
No,
it does belong
didn't.
to her fiance.
I like unfollowed her. So I'm like, girl,
It's
I was
wild.
very like team Gypsy Rose. And I'm like, okay, Miss Ma'am, you need to calm down a little bit.
And see, this is what I'm wondering too, because I'm sure they're going to get out and people are going to want to interview them and get all these deals and whatever. I have a hard time with that.
Me too.
Because I don't
think it's what's right for them.
And not even that, but like, I don't want to glorify murderers.
I understand what you mean.
And we are getting that way with Gypsy Rose. Like people are like, girl boss, yes, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Dude, she fucking murdered her mom.
Yeah, like there is a difference. Like I feel huge empathy for all victims of abuse. Like,
yes.
And
yes. I do want to make that clear. I am not discounting the abuse in this situation.
We know each other. Like we're both very empathetic royals, but it's like it is this sort of new territory that I think we're dealing with, and like with the media and everything like that. I just don't think it's good. There needs to be, we need to, prison reform. We need to have somewhere, like almost like my words are not coming today. I keep thinking secondary school, but that's not it. Like when drug addicts get out of rehab, they
like a halfway house. Well, they do, I think, do halfway houses for people who are leaving prison who do not have housing. Like they will go to like a halfway house until they can get things figured out.
Right. So I'm not really thinking of that. I'm thinking of like you're thinking kind of that, but
more like a therapy place.
Use a cell phone.
Oh, yes.
Be an adult, and also
like a re-education almost. I hate that term because re-education is just like
iffy.
I don't know. It makes me think very like concentration camp, Christian reform of indigenous people type of thing. But like
No,
like almost like a primer on modern society.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I want them to get help, and I don't want them to get like thrust into the media where it's like people are going to be offering them money, which they're like, I need this for my life, and then they're gonna get traumatized again. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I'm very much in like a wait and see mode with them at the moment.
That's a good perspective.
But if you want to check either of these out, they are both on Netflix. The first is Monsters, Lyle and Eric Menendez story. That's the Ryan Murphy series. And then the documentary is just called The Menendez Brothers. They both came out this year, 2024. Check it out.
Check it out.
This is that part of the show where we say content may not be appropriate for all listeners. We're going to be talking about murder.
Which one are we doing first?
So, well, let me tell you. Let me tell you.
I have to know what my trigger warnings are.
And this actually came across for me over the break because this was sort of breaking news right as we took our little October hiatus there.
I'm a realistic fish head and it's a beautiful day.
So we are going to be talking about exonerations.
There we go.
Because I just think it's important to highlight these stories where things are corrected, but it also highlights some sort of inadequacies in our system.
Absolutely.
Also. So I think it's important that we talk about these every once in a while. So we're doing exonerations today.
Perfect.
So I am going to start out, and we talk about them so often in the United States, because they happen pretty frequently in the United States, which is like wild in our modern age, but humans, imperfect. But I want to take us out of the United States.
Oh, good.
And
let's leave.
Let's point out flaws in other places because I just can't even with ours right now. So we are actually going to head to Japan for this story.
Japan's nice this time of year.
And I want to talk about a gentleman named Iwao Hakamada. Born on March 10th, 1936 in Shizuoka Prefecture, Hakamada was the youngest of three siblings. Now, before the unfortunate events that we'll go over in just a second, Hakamada was most known as a professional featherweight boxer.
Oh, wait. Okay. I'm the non-sports girl. They have featherweight boxing. That sounds so cute.
So there's like different weight classes, right? Just like in wrestling.
Yeah.
But they have like heavyweight, featherweight, I don't know what the medium weight.
Call it featherweight?
Because they're the light guys. They're like they're not like the big boys. They're like the lighter weight class.
Featherweight.
So in total, his career record was 16-11-2.
Wow.
Which is pretty good. 16 wins, 11 losses, 2 ties, with 1 TKO. And he reached a peak ranking of 6th in his weight class, which is pretty good.
Wow.
Pretty good. When his boxing career finished, it ran from 1959 to 1961. Hakamada decided to work for a miso manufacturer.
Yum.
Which I don't know about you, but I fucking love me some miso. It's so good. That umami.
So good.
Umami.
Umami, I love that soup.
Now, up to this point, Hakamada had a relatively uneventful life from what I could tell. He was the boxer, but like after that, he kind of just like
eventful to me.
Went to work. He provided for his family. He was just like a regular guy.
Yeah.
But 5 years after joining the miso plant, his world would be turned upside down forever. On June 30th, 1966, a fire breaks out at the home of one of Hakamada's bosses.
Oh, no.
Being nearby, Hakamada claims that he rushed to put out the flames, and then he started like assessing the property to be like, okay, are there any people in here? Like, what's the damage? Like, what's going on? When he looked around the property to see what was left, Hakamada discovered the bodies of his boss, his boss's wife, and their 2 teenage children.
Aww.
Later investigation by authorities also found approximately 200,000 yen had been stolen. Now,
Did the fire take it?
just burned to a crisp.
Yeah, like...
Presumably, due to his proximity to the crime, Hakamada became the number 1 suspect. He was immediately taken into custody and interrogated, after which he confessed to the murders. This, paired with evidence of a small amount of blood and gasoline found on clothes that he owned, they were like pajamas that he was wearing, police arrested Hakamada and charged him with murder, robbery, and arson.
I'm glad we're doing the exoneration case, because if this were an episode of Forensic Files, I would already be like...
You're like, this is terrible.
Wait. Something's going on here.
Yeah, don't worry. We will explore all of this in detail.
Good. Favorite thing to do.
You'll get even more angry.
You're on bad taste crime.
The trial began in the Shizuoka District Court with prosecutors presenting the clothing evidence and the alleged murder weapon, which was a fruit knife with a 12.19 centimeter blade.
Oh my God.
And you know what I'm talking about? Like, I feel like I don't have any of these, but I remember my mom having them where they were like the plastic handles with like the sort of flimsy blades.
Yeah, that's not a good murder weapon. Sometimes when I try to cut apples with it, it like bends.
Yeah, like the Dollar General fruit knife. Yeah.
I need a raise so I can buy a new knife.
So this was what they said was the alleged murder weapon.
No.
It seemed like...
Also, wait, hello? I thought they like burned to death.
So, okay, well, no.
But when they went in, they had...
the bodies were still there. It's not like bodies like completely
but
disintegrate.
I thought they had like smoke inhalation or whatever.
No.
Because the house was on fire.
The house was on fire.
But they
were found stabbed. They were stabbed. I'm sorry. I think I did leave that out.
No, I also have ADHD. To be clear. I could have been thinking about bunnies or...
So they go to trial with this evidence. Now,
not a lot of evidence.
Seems like they get a real lucky break because 14 months later, 9 months into the trial, but 14 months after the crime, police discovered 5 pieces of bloody clothes in a tank at the miso factory that they claimed came from the killer.
Oh my God.
Police also claimed that they had tested the blood on these clothes and that it matched the blood type of the victim.
Okay.
One of the victims.
Okay.
Now, from here, their narrative of the crime changed a little bit. They said that Hakamada must have committed the quadruple murder, changed into the pajamas they found initially, and then committed the arson. Prosecutors...
He's like, let me get cozy.
Yeah. So they pretty much like... Because before they just had these pajamas, it was like a drop of blood and a drop of gas. Like
but
it was
now they
teeny
found these
amounts.
Other clothes that are like soaked probably.
So they pretty much like... got rid of the other the initial pajama evidence. They were just like, evidence. We're just gonna slide this to the side because these bloody clothes are now
makes
our
a better
main piece.
headline.
9 months into the trial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Prosecutors also presented 45 signed confession documents, only one of which was accepted by the court. Okay. Jeez. So all above board. Now, during the trial, there were some glaring issues with the evidence that was being presented. First, Hakamada made an attempt during the trial to retract his confession, saying he was beaten and coerced.
There we go.
He told his lawyers, you're going to get so mad, girl.
I'm already mad. I was born mad.
I'm perpetually angry.
This is my natural state of being.
He told his lawyers that he had been interrogated without the presence of an attorney over the course of 23 days, sometimes lasting 16 hours at a time.
What?
Yeah. There was something like, when they broke it down with the math, it was something like 244 hours of interrogation in total.
This poor guy.
Yes. He alleged that, his attorneys alleged that police denied water or bathroom breaks during these interrogations, with Hakamata later telling his sister, quote, "I could do nothing but crouch down on the floor trying to keep from defecating. One of the interrogators put my thumb onto an ink pad, drew it to a written confession record, and ordered me, write your name here, while shouting at me, kicking me, and wrenching my arm," end quote.
Oh my God. I think that's illegal. I don't think they're allowed to do that.
No.
I think they broke the law.
Yeah, and this is like, I feel like Japan, out more than most places that I've researched in my time on the show, uses that intense an interrogation technique, if you could call it, where they will just like beat the shit out of people.
This is
because
my technique.
Japan also has like a 99% conviction rate.
Wow.
Like if they bring a case,
well, that makes sense.
99% of the time that person is guilty.
Oh,
and convicted. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Japan is really their whole criminal justice thing over there is really
wild.
interesting.
I'm learning that.
Now there was also the issue of the alleged murder weapon, a fruit knife.
Yeah.
Many
there's no way.
Many people believed, and I would agree with you too,
It would break.
that a fruit knife would not have been able to hold up to 40 stabbings without being damaged.
No way.
Like it would break off or the
Yes.
knife would dull and just not. I honestly think it would get to a point where it wouldn't be able to penetrate anymore.
I don't even know if it would be able to make any mortal wounds. Because like to be able to like, this is gross. But when you stab and it gets caught in bone, that you have to like wrench it out. It's very like physically difficult.
Or it would slide down into your hand and then you would end up with like cuts and stuff, which from what I could tell was not really like something that Hakamata had.
Right.
Or
And
maybe they even
probably
looked at. I don't even know.
Well, yeah, probably they were like pinching his wounds.
Don't show us your hands. We actually don't want to know.
Yeah, ew, gross.
Yeah. So there was that too.
Wow.
Plus, once the miso-soaked clothes were discovered by police, it appeared that, like I said, the prosecution made the pajama evidence sort of just like disappear as if it was no longer important. But the miso clothes were sized too small to fit Hakamata.
If the miso doesn't fit,
you must have quit. The prosecution said that due to the amount of time the clothes were in the miso tank that they had shrunk, pointing to a label on the clothing that had a B, the letter B on it, indicating that they were of medium size and they could have fit Hakamata. Now, the pro Hakamata folks were very quick to point out that the letter B on the tag actually indicated black, the color of the garment.
see, this is what happens when you have an all male
Fucking men.
prosecuting team. You know, one of their like wives came in and was like, that just means black.
Yeah. You don't buy the clothes, I will tell you. But according to a news outlet called The Conversation, quote, the color of the clothes was too light and the blood stains too dark for them to have been stewing in a miso barrel for 14 months.
Yeah, I was going to say, would they even be like intact still? Like in liquid for months and months and months?
Well, I imagine like just like a regular cotton t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
I imagine it would still be intact, but like it would be stained or
let's get some data on that.
Lighten,
if you
yeah.
have clothes that you keep in miso soup for experiments such as these, call in and let us
just
know what
imagine
happens to the
like
fabric.
putting a white t-shirt in like, I don't know, Pepsi for like a month, right?
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, is there anything in miso soup that's like acidic?
No, but it is like a stainy texture because it's like a soybean paste.
Yeah.
But it's
I
like
love miso soup.
brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
how could they even still tell there was like blood on them at that point? Don't you think it would have been in the miso, making a delicious but forbidden soup?
And that's why they point out the blood stains were too dark, because if it was blood-stained clothing, like just being in that would lift some of the stains after a period of time. Not saying completely, but like it wouldn't be like if you freshly bleed onto a shirt and then soak it for 14 months.
Yeah,
this is 14 months,
some,
you know.
Kind of changed.
Yeah. Maybe. Now, despite all of these discrepancies, the court, made up of a 3-judge panel, found Hakamata guilty on all counts on September 11th, 1968.
Bad date.
It's the greatest date.
Never forget.
And he was sentenced to death.
Japan, calm down.
Yeah, well, he was found guilty of a quadruple murder.
I mean, yeah. Well,
and the death penalty in Japan is very popular.
Yes.
I think it has gotten less popular over the years, but
yeah,
definitely
they
very
sure
popular.
Do like to give the death penalty.
Hakamata, of course, appealed his conviction, continuing to maintain his innocence and still trying to retract his confession. But in November 1980, the Supreme Court of Japan upheld the conviction and the death sentence. This decision prompted Hakamata to replace his team of lawyers, and the following year, 1981, requested a retrial, saying the physical evidence needed to be re-examined.
Yeah. Get some soup scientists in here.
So he was found guilty in 1968, so now we're in 1980.
Just to give
gosh.
He's been in jail this whole time, on Japanese death row.
Now, during their own investigation of the case, they found what many people had been saying all along. The alleged murder weapon was too small, as were the clothes found in the miso barrel. They also found that a door that police had claimed was used to enter the residence was actually locked. And so nobody could get in. It took 13 years of additional evidence gathering.
Oh my God.
Before the new team of lawyers had the request for a new trial heard by the Shizuoka District Court.
Me when I get paid by the hour.
Yeah, right. But even then, it was denied.
What?
Again.
After 13 years?
There was another attempt made in the year 2000 to retest the blood on the clothes for DNA, but techniques at that time were still unable to pull anything. It was still pretty early in the DNA side of things. The decision on the retrial was appealed and upheld by the Tokyo High Court in August 2004.
Oh my God.
Things picked back up again for Hakamata in November 2006 when a large group of supporters submitted letters to the Supreme Court in support of Hakamata's innocence and asking for a retrial. He would finally catch a bit of a break when the following year, Norimichi Kumamoto, one of the judges who had on that 3-judge panel that had originally convicted him, publicly came out in support of his innocence, saying, quote, "Since I had convicted him, I felt extremely guilty that I had to sentence an innocent man. I still do to this day," end quote. Even during the trial, Kumamoto expressed that he had doubts as to Hakamata's guilt, saying, quote, "Looking at the evidence, there was almost nothing but the confession, and that had been taken under intense interrogation," end quote. And he felt that because he was not able to convince the other 2 judges, they were really pressuring him to go with a guilty verdict. He felt like he had no choice but to sentence him.
That sucks.
Yeah. I will say Kumamoto eventually resigned due to his guilt over this conviction. Yeah.
Well.
Now, this was a huge turning point in Hakamata's case because all of a sudden, high-profile people were speaking out on his behalf, including American boxer Reuben Carter, who had served 20 years for murder and had his conviction overturned.
Vicky. That's the case I'm doing.
Is it? I'm so sorry.
Vicky.
Did I just spoil?
No, that is so funny because I was literally about to start mine with, we have a lot in common because we both did boxing.
So your guy,
I know about
you
this
told me that and I totally forgot. I totally forgot.
We've done that a bunch of times.
So he came out in support as also an exoneree, and British actor Jeremy Irons.
Ooh, Scott.
Right. Yes, exactly.
He very sexily came out in support.
There was a huge push for a retrial, and in March 2008, the courts decided to hear Hakamata's request, but it was once again denied, saying both the original and new evidence would not sufficiently prove reasonable doubt.
I'm doubting reasonably.
According to this court, nuh-uh.
That court can suck my nuts. They are wrong.
Now, during all of this happening in 2008, DNA testing was once again done on the bloody clothing. And by that point, 2008 was kind of like where things started this huge upswing for DNA testing. So at that point, they were able to pull DNA.
Hold on, this is soup.
Yeah. It was all this time. Nobody just licked the fabric. So they were able to pull DNA from the bloodstained clothing, and they found that it did not match Hakamata. Testing was done again in March 2012 when Hakamata gave a blood sample to be compared to a sample they believed to belong to the attacker. This also showed that it did not belong to Hakamata. But prosecutors were very quick to like dispute these tests. They were just like,
these guys suck.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Oh my God.
Finally, after this second round of testing, the Shizuoka District Court granted a retrial and released Hakamata while he waited for his new trial. Well, it's more of like being on bail.
Yeah.
Closer to being on bail. Yeah. But they released him at this point while he awaited his new trial, mostly due to his age of 78.
Oh my God.
At the time.
This poor guy.
The decision to release him while he awaited trial was appealed by the prosecution.
What?
But their appeal was denied.
Oh, thank God. They're like, lock him back up.
Yeah. Hakamata was only the 6th person on death row to receive a retrial in Japan.
Whoa.
Yeah. Not a lot. Like I said, 99% conviction rate is like...
That's wild. That's scary.
Yeah, it was. And by this point, it was clear that the many years in prison had affected both his mental and physical health.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, the dude was 78. Like, that's a lot of years in prison.
Oh, I feel so bad.
At some point, Hakamata was diagnosed with institutional psychosis, which just happens when you are institutionalized for long, long periods of time. 6 years later, in 2018,
oh my God,
the Tokyo High Court decided that actually we're going to overturn the decision to release Hakamata to await trial.
What?
But they continued to let him remain out until that decision was final, because ultimately the Supreme Court, like, once it's at the Tokyo High Court, it then has to, I think it automatically gets appealed to the Supreme Court. So they were like, this is our decision, but you can stay out until the Supreme Court makes the final decision on your release.
Okay.
Which appears to have let him remain out until his retrial.
Oh my God.
The retrial was officially ordered on March 13th, 2023. And finally,
oh my God,
on September 26th,
don't play with me
2024.
What?
So just a couple. This is why I'm like, this came up like right before we took our break.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So on September 20th.
You said you picked it forever ago.
Yes. Yeah. I know. And then I forgot to tell you. Finally, on September 26, 2024, Hakamata was acquitted of all charges and released.
Yay!
On October 8th, just a few weeks ago, prosecutors said they would not seek an appeal, and the acquittal was made official the following day.
Phew.
Now, when he was released, Hakamata was 88 years old. Luckily, his 91-year-old sister was there to welcome him home. He spent a total of 56 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, in fact, becoming the Guinness Book of World Record holder for the longest time spent on death row.
Not an award you want to
Because he was on death row that entire time. It wasn't even just like in prison. Yeah. It was on death row.
Oh my
56 years. A formal apology was made by police chief Takayoshi Suda on October 21st, 2024, on behalf of the Shizuoka Prefectural Police. I saw a video of this because, of course, they've had a bunch of videos since he's been out. But it was like a whole like apology ceremony where he came into their home and he did a bowing ceremony.
I did see that.
Yeah. This was, like I said, just a couple weeks ago. So like he had gone into the living room, did a full bowing apology ceremony thing, which is very nice.
What that was.
Because again, like this, I'm sure this police chief was like 5 years old when this, you know what I mean? It's not like, his fault. But at least he's making the apology on behalf of police because, which I feel like is good. I mean, I feel like that's good.
That's a nice thing.
But also I'm like, it seems to, I get the impression that the prosecution was pushing more for his conviction than the police.
Where's their apology?
Like the government apology, but what are you going to do? So so Hakamata is out. He is alive. I don't know how well he's doing. In the interviews, he seems healthy enough, like physically, but Obviously, I'm sure that has to take a toll on your mental health. But after 56 years, they were able to right an injustice, but he lost literally his entire adult life in prison.
Yeah.
For something he didn't do. And also, by the way, they will likely never catch the murderer.
I was going to say, who was the murderer?
Don't know.
Wow.
In all of my research, I did not see a mention of them like making an effort to go reinvestigate the case. Now, I will say, because this literally just happened, like he was officially acquitted and all of this just happened, it is entirely possible that they will, and they just haven't really announced it yet.
Yeah.
Frankly, cold cases are not necessarily priority for most authorities.
That's true. But it might get some more attention back into it.
Yeah. I'm curious to see if they do decide to go back and investigate.
Oh my God.
That is the story of the exoneration of Iwao Hakamada.
That's a good one. I'm so mad.
And your guy getting an honorable mention.
That is so funny.
Which I didn't even know. Now I'm excited to hear his story.
Yes. Yeah, so I love that you picked exonerations. It's like one of the best. It's such a Vicky topic.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know how I feel. I've talked many, many times about how I feel about the Innocence Project and like any exoneree organization, like very pro reinvestigation of sketchy cases.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, so mine might have already heard it through another channel, but mine is covering the exoneration of Reuben Carter.
Okay, which honestly I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with it either. And then when I started looking into it, I was like, oh, I do kind of know.
Yeah.
I have kind of heard of it, but I couldn't remember it. So mine takes place, the actual murder takes place in like 1960s America.
Okay.
Which not a great time to be what Reuben Carter is, which is a black man in America. Not a great time.
Yes.
Not that stuff has changed.
I know. I'm like, is it still a good time?
No, it's not. It's not. We have so much work to do.
Yes.
But the 60s was, of course, a time of great civil unrest in this country, which again is still true. Nothing has changed. Where unfair and disgusting segregation was seen as normal and was even legal. Black people were forced to abide by Jim Crow laws, which decided where they could eat, use the bathroom, and even drink water, among lots of other things. Violence and also lynchings were extremely common, and many of these racist crimes went unpunished and unreported. Black men could be killed for even just said to have glanced too long at a white woman, like in the case of Emmett Till, where a white woman lied for attention and her shitty white friends brutally murdered a 14-year-old black boy for allegedly looking at her wrong, when in fact that literally never happened. And none of them ever went to jail. She just died, which good. I hope she had a horrible fucking life. They went totally unpunished. So that fact, along with all of the segregation, the violence, the racism of the time, is something that's important to keep in mind when looking at this case and other cases from this era, because Black people were literally seen as subhuman.
Yeah.
And with a lot of these like exoneration cases, I feel like people love like a reformed sinner, especially like here in America. It's such a thing. And
that's why everybody is like all about the Menendez brothers, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
You know?
And the thing is, a lot of people are on the side of the Menendez brothers, which I understand, and I'm kind of in this camp where I'm like, let them go home at this point, you know?
Yeah.
And especially because they've been behaving themselves. They haven't been violent.
And I'm pretty sure that Lyle has said like he's a reformed Christian now too.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Ew.
Yeah. But I mean like sinners to saints, right? Like that's super common in prison.
And that's the thing. And a lot of people are on their side because they're like, oh, you know, they're trying to do good. Reuben, although spoiler alert, this is the exoneration podcast, did he commit these murders? No. But was he the perfect victim? No. So that kind of makes his case interesting.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay.
So let me go over like the actual crime. So this is what happened. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on June 17th, 1966. This is in Paterson, New Jersey at the Lafayette Bar and Grill.
Okay.
So there were like two customers there, Fred Naox and Hazel Tanis, and then the bartender, James Oliver. Those were the three victims, and then there was a third customer there who did survive. So we were just talking about the 60s and all of this segregation. So they're all hanging out in the bar. These two black men walk into the bar, and the bartender threw a bottle at them.
Oh my God.
Like, so this is the thing. This is another case, spoiler, where they don't catch the actual bad guys because they're too busy dicking around and going after other people and not doing their job.
Sure.
I think that this shooting in this bar was like pre-planned. I think these people did this for a reason, but it's like, why are you throwing bottles at people? They just walked in and the bartender's like,
yeah.
I'm like, fuck you. Like, so
that's a warm welcome into your bar.
So I don't think it was retaliatory. I think they meant like to go in there and kill people anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I read that in one of the articles and I was like, hello?
Yeah.
What is wrong with people?
Oh my God.
I'm just going to make a little statement. I really hate it when we talk about like the 60s and white people are like, well, that was just like the status quo back then. That's just like how it was.
It was a different time.
No, it was a different time, but I'm like, it doesn't excuse people.
That doesn't make it right.
For doing these horrible things. Yeah. People are going to walk into your bar and you're going to throw a bottle. They're customers.
My thing is like, it doesn't, just because it was a different time doesn't make it right, because there were still people at that time trying to do the right thing.
Exactly.
So that doesn't mean that like, because that was the societal norm, that it was all good, because like there were other people around who were not doing that bullshit.
You know what else was happening in the 60s? A giant civil rights movement.
Yeah.
So it's like there were other perspectives. It's not like you're living in like whatever. So two men entered the Lafayette Bar and Grill. And began grill. Can't forget the grill. And began shooting. So the bartender, the bottle thrower, James Oliver, and a customer, Fred Naox, they were killed immediately. And then Hazel Tanis was shot, and she died in the hospital like a month later. Because she was shot multiple times, so they were able to keep her alive for a little bit, but she did end up passing away. Okay. And then a third customer, Willie Marins, he got shot in the head and went blind in one eye, but he did survive.
Wow.
He ended up surviving.
Okay.
So they were able to talk to Hazel before she passed, and they were able to talk to Willie in the hospital, and both of them said that the shooters had been black males, but that was like about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's look at who Reuben Carter is, because I kind of did this backwards. So Reuben Hurricane Carter, which is a cool name, is also, as I'm listening to yours, I was like, my guy's a boxer too. This is so funny.
Yeah, Hakamata didn't have a cool boxing name that I saw. He was just Hakamata.
I think that if you're a boxer, you're a wrestler or whatever, you should have like a nickname.
I don't know that they're as common in other places as they are in the US though.
Okay, well that's dumb.
I think I think they are in like the UK. But I don't think as common in like Japan or Korea, where they have other like big boxing cultures. Yeah.
Lame.
Like, maybe I don't know shit about boxing. That's also a thing.
I'm thinking about Steven Universe and the Purple Panther.
Yes.
Tiger Millionaire.
Yeah. Tiger Millionaire.
That's the best.
So
this
good.
Is the Steven Universe podcast. So Reuben Hurricane Carter was born May 6th, 1937. And he was a middleweight boxer. So I was laughing.
So there is a middleweight.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, like, and this was boxing, and I didn't even look up. I'm like, featherweight.
Yeah. I think it is heavyweight, middleweight, featherweight.
Featherweight. Yeah. That is so funny. And honestly, like, here's his picture. He's pretty jacked.
Wow. Oh my God. He is.
He's rippling.
Jesus. Yeah. My goodness.
He's a little sexy.
Yeah, dude. I won't deny. I will not deny.
So Reuben, growing up in sort of this time period, when you look at his childhood, he really fucking went through it. I found an article that was talking about something that happened in his childhood, because his dad, it's like the 30s and 40s ain't shit to do. So he would hunt game to feed the family. So he would shoot like possums and squirrels and raccoons. Delish.
Yeah.
So young Reuben and some of his uncles and his dad went on like a hunting trip when he was a kid. And they noticed as they were driving through New Jersey, they were being followed by this truck. And the truck, which never a good thing, we watch too many horror movies. It's like, no, thank you.
Wait, dude, Tiff and I went on a road trip in Michigan a couple years ago. And of course, I have my car with my like Bernie sticker on the back. And we were getting followed by this truck. And we were both like, I turned out to be nothing. But it's still that like.
Still so scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Never a good sign.
Bernie protected you. And this truck would end up trying to run them off the road. Because, like, obviously he could see that they were black.
Yeah.
So he's trying to run them off the road. So they end up, like, almost getting into a collision. And they both got out. Like, the driver got out. And then Reuben's dad got out. And the driver started walking forward. And Reuben's dad just took his hunting rifle out. And the guy just, like, got back in the car and was like, goodbye.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
And which it's like, fuck around, find out. Like, I'm on a hunting trip, sir. Why are you trying to run me off the road? Asshole?
Right. So he grew up in New Jersey too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there was just a lot. And like, I feel like when we think of New Jersey, I always think of like the cities, but there's a lot of like woods and backwoods in New Jersey that is like, from what I've seen, like pretty.
Yeah. Well, where else is the Jersey Devil going to hang out?
See, I forget that you are like Christian.
Where else is the Jersey Devil gonna hang out?
In the woods.
Yeah, they gotta go into what is it? The Jersey Pines?
Sure.
Pines? Keep going. Keep going.
No, I love that. Love the Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. So this like kind of like cemented for him, like you have to stand up for yourself. Like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have to stand up, which honestly I agree with. I think to deny that, especially as a white person, is
the Pine Barrens is what I was thinking of.
That's what it is.
The Pine Barrens.
So that's probably where they were with the Jersey Devil. And
yeah.
So
definitely now we're just like, they for sure were hunting the Jersey Devil.
It was the Jersey Devil. Reuben Carter's family's gonna call us like, okay, so that wasn't part of it. We're like, how do you know?
You don't know.
You don't know. So Reuben, likely inspired by the bravery and courage of the Jersey Devil, had a little bit of a rough childhood, but he had that mentality of like, I have to stand up for myself because no one's going to do it for me. So he ended up kind of being the head of like a gang in his youth, and him and the gang would fight other kids in the neighborhood and commit violent offenses, but it was kind of portrayed as like they're just kind of trying to get along. You know, they're not trying to hurt innocent people. Of course, we don't fully know, but they're just trying to stick together for protection.
Sure.
And a lot of what he did seemed to be like about what was fair, about justice. There's another story from his childhood about he was seen by like a pastor. He was like stealing clothes with his gang. And the pastor, who was like, obviously it's a pastor in the neighborhood, like dragged him home and told his dad. And he was like, no, I don't care if you're a pastor. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Beat the hell out of this dude.
Oh my God.
Which, okay, that part's not fair.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
But anyway. I set that up as one thing and it really wasn't that.
Yes. Just like the turtles.
Turtle. I really thought that I was going to be on her side. I was like, yeah, release those turtles.
Oh my God.
Like I'm thinking she like kidnapped them from like being experimented on. I'm like,
nah.
Yeah, set them free.
Nope.
Damn it.
That's dinner.
I was really on your side. So by age 14, Reuben would be locked up in a juvenile detention center, where he had stabbed a man who he claimed was trying to offend against him. Who was like a local like pedophile. So again, this is this thing of him kind of being like a vigilante.
And you said it was juvie, right? It was like, okay.
Because he was only 14.
Yeah.
And he said it was horrible, obviously. Horrible place. And he decided, because he was watching other kids get victimized, he knew that he was stronger than a lot of them. So he became this protector, and people would almost kind of like hire him to protect them, to beat people up. And that kind of, I think, put like the boxing idea in his head.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of people who went into boxing that were like kind of from this rough area, because it is not like one of these sports that's necessarily like you need a ton of money to get into it, or like
not a bunch of like crazy equipment.
No.
And there are a lot of gyms that like instead of these like expensive training gyms, any gym can have a punching bag.
They're just like a hole, and there are a lot of like hole in the wall type places,
which is amazing. I mean, structure and everything. So as he was like beating people up in juvie, he was like, actually, this kind of sucks, and he escaped.
Okay.
And ran 80 kilometers and was never caught. At the end.
My God.
And then he, it will.
And they just let it go. They were just like whatever.
40s. So I feel like I don't know. And I mean, he ran 80 kilometers. I feel like that's far.
They're like,
without
well, that he,
get out of there,
yeah, 80 kilometers. All right. Like that's the magic number.
Right. And I think kind of to like help not go back, he joined the army in 1954 and went to Germany. And that's where he officially came across boxing.
Okay.
Because all of the all in the army, they were all boxing because there was nothing to do. And him with no training turned to the trainer and said, I can beat any man here.
Damn.
Just point me towards whoever.
Love that confidence though.
But the trainer looked at him and he was like, okay, so you're drunk. But I can see that you think that you're serious. So if you're really serious, come back tomorrow. And he did, and he beat every man there.
Nice. So I wasn't just drunk.
Right.
It wasn't just the alcohol.
Yeah, shut up.
I also have skill.
Yeah, it's fine. So that's that. So he started when he wasn't doing like army stuff.
Yeah,
he was training with the trainer there, and all of his former like sparring partners were like, this guy is a machine.
Nice.
Like, this guy is crazy. A former sparring partner said his battles with Carter made him quickly realize, quote, boxing wasn't something I wanted to do with any regularity.
Damn. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's good because like, if you think about like the people they have fighting at higher levels, like that is the kind of competition that you're going to see at those higher levels. Right. You're seeing it early. Yes. And you can get out early and save yourself all the CTE. Like,
maybe that's what should have happened to that girl who went to the Olympics, that like stupid Italian boxer who, when the girl hit her, she was like, she's a man. Ow, she hit me right in the head.
No,
like,
she didn't say that. Stupid. I'm going to put it out there. That boxer never said that. We're going to correct it on the fly.
What do you mean?
The Italian boxer never said that.
She did.
No, she did not. We'll talk about this off the show, but she didn't say it. That is part of the lies that have been running around about that whole thing. Yes.
Okay, let's cut it out then. No,
we'll leave it in, but I'm just saying for the record.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Yeah. We'll talk about it after the show.
I'll look at it. So he's building up his rippling muscles, and then he gets discharged from the army after like 2 years. So it seems like just like Forrest Gump went to college to do football, he kind of like went to the army to punch, and then he went home.
Okay,
and
fair.
Then he messed around for a little bit and was like, I think I'll go to prison a couple times. First, they did catch him for skipping jail. They were like, come back here.
Okay, so they did go out. I was like, wow, it's kind of amazing that they were just like, all right, you get out of here, you scamp.
Well, I feel like he probably like, I'm like, why did you go back to the same area? First of all, stupid.
Yeah. So they caught him after he came back from the army?
Yep. And they were like, get back here.
Damn.
And then he got out again and was convicted of like 3, it said apparently spur of the moment muggings, which like he probably didn't have any money, but like don't mug people. And then he was released from prison September 1961.
Okay.
And that day turned to professional boxing.
Okay.
And then just a year later, he had a match at the Madison Square Garden.
Oh,
where
that's big time.
Yeah, there's like a really iconic boxer, Florentino Fernandez, and he knocked him out in 69 seconds.
Hey, nice.
One punch.
Nice. 69. Nice.
Super cool. So he was called the Hurricane because, I mean, obviously, bam, bam, bam.
Right.
He's just going to get you. But he didn't like the name.
I'm just thinking of the here come the hurricane, bitch. Ow,
here come the hurricane, bitch.
Yeah.
I love that. Katrina.
That would have been so good for his like entrance music.
Wouldn't that be great?
Katrina. Yeah.
Probably not, because he was actually extremely homophobic.
Oh,
which is sad.
fuck.
Yeah, I was literally like looking at the next story, like, am I gonna put that in?
Well, I mean, it's part of his personality.
It's part now. Yep. Not good.
Yikes.
So he's a very like kind of controversial character. Like, he would fight anyone. He's people know he's been to jail, so he's seen as kind of this like tough dude, right?
Yeah.
So back to the night of the shooting. So he's living his life being a professional boxer, scaring people, punching people. And he's hanging out with a friend of his, whose name is John Artis, who is another black man.
Okay.
He's a little bit younger. He's 19, and he's a local athlete. I think he was like a track star.
Okay.
And they went together to like a local nightclub, which is super uncreatively named The Night Spot. I'm like, whatever.
Listen, it is what it says on the label. No airs there. That does what it says on the tin.
That's true.
It's night, and this is a spot.
So they like hook up. They end up all kind of getting together at the end of the night. It's like super early in the morning. And they also, the two of them, Artis and Carter, get together with another man, John Bucks Royster, who's just kind of a drifter, who's like a little too drunk, and he needs a ride, and Carter has a car. So they're like, yeah, sure. Come in the car. It's fine. So Artis is driving, and he sets off, and they get pulled over immediately. And the police, although they don't know it at the time, the police are looking for these two black men who have just killed all these people in this bar.
Okay, so this is the night of the shooting in the bar.
The shooting has just happened. But they have no idea, because they're in the same town in New Jersey, but they're just at the nightclub. They have no idea.
Right.
So they're like across town or whatever.
Okay.
And it's poor John. Like, I'm like, this is 60s America. This is the first time he's ever been pulled over. John is not like, because Carter's kind of like been around the block a couple times.
Right.
Artis is 19, and he's never been pulled over. He's never been in trouble before. I'm like, oh. So Carter was lying down in the back seat, like just chilling.
Because he's wasted.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And Artis is driving home, and as the police officer comes up, I'm sure Artis is like, oh man, dude. So Carter sits up, and I love this. I think this is great. Apologies for the language. The police officer leans in and he says, "We're looking for two Negroes." And Carter said, "Oh, and I suppose any two will do?"
Okay.
Carter was so famous in the area that he recognized him. He was like, "Oh, hey, man." Takes the license. He's like, "Oh,
I mean,
okay."
I feel like if the guy is boxing Madison Square Garden, like,
right.
people will know who the fuck you are.
So he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up?"
Yeah.
This is super cool. That's super cool. So, yeah, they're dismissed.
Okay.
I think that probably put a little adrenaline in them, because they make like a quick stop at Carter's house, pick up some more money, and they're like, we're getting back into the car. So they drop off the third guy who they don't really know, Royster. And then they're like, oh, incorrect. Just kidding. So they go to Carter's house.
Okay.
They make a quick stop. They drop off the third guy. And then Artis sets off back home, and he's gonna drop Carter off somewhere on the way.
Okay.
However, they get stopped again by the same cop, but this time there's like helicopters, and they don't put him in the car, but they're like, you have to follow us to the police station. And so Artis, who again is 19, is like, okay.
Yeah. My naive, sweet summer child.
I know. I'm like,
oh, God.
So instead of taking them to the police station, which is what I thought, they take them to the bar where these two men are standing outside watching these bodies get pulled away, like in sheets and stuff. And they're like, what the fuck happened? Like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And it says, Artis realizes this isn't good.
Oh.
And the reason, and he's like, why are we here? And then they
definitely
go
not
to,
good.
Right. And then they go to Marin's, who was the one who got shot in the head and ended up going blind in one eye, because he was the one who was still conscious and could see. And they were like, are these the two men who shot you? So they bring him right there.
Yeah.
But luckily, he looks at them and he's like, no.
Okay.
So they're like, oh, cool, we can go. And they're like, no, we're going to the police station now. They're like, what What do you mean?
Okay.
That's stupid. So you were talking before about like your interrogations were super long. They were interrogated for 17 hours on this first night. And again, like they've been probably drinking.
Yeah.
They've been out all night anyway.
Yeah.
17
Which
hours.
you're not supposed to interrogate somebody who is under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
Drug tank them immediately.
Just saying.
All night long. And they were repeatedly threatened.
Okay.
Did you shoot them? Did Carter shoot them? Tell us what happened, or we're gonna lock you up. If you just tell us it was the other guy, that this is they're saying this to Artis, the younger one.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy's been to jail, whatever. If you tell us it's him, you can go home. And he was like, no, fuck you. And they even do a lie detector test. And when which again, I'm like, right there. Like,
Yeah.
you haven't even prepared it. Like,
right.
I don't believe in lie detector tests anyway, but like,
right.
they just bring it in and do it. And when they're doing the lie detector, they look at Artis and they're like, oh, if you get this wrong, you're going to get the electric chair. I'm like, he is 19. Like, this poor kid. But since they both pass the lie detector and they both refuse to blame the other one, they're like, we weren't there. Mm-hmm. They were released the next day. So they both kind of go on with their lives. They think it's fine. And then 4 months later, Artis is out living his life. It's his 20th birthday. It said he was going to go buy soda. I'm like, that is so cute. He's going to go buy like a soda pop.
At the corner store.
Him, like flicking a quarter, like do.
Yeah.
And he is like going around a corner and all of a sudden, big ass shotgun jammed up under his chin. That's how the police arrest him.
Wow.
I'm like, he is living.
So in this whole
life.
time, they had not contacted him for anything.
No.
4 months, you said?
Uh-huh.
That's wow.
Yup.
That's wild.
Yup. Yup.
That whole time, he could have gotten an attorney. Like, if he knew, like, he could have been, like, putting things in place in a manner of speaking, you know?
Yep. So here is, like, these two witnesses.
Okay.
Because this is, like, how they kind of, like, narrowed in on these two, which, honestly, the reason they narrowed in on them is because they were Black and nearby.
Yeah.
But there were two witnesses, which Alfred Bello and Arthur Dexter Bradley, they had been near the Lafayette bar that night. Why, you ask? They were trying to break into a nearby music company because they were career criminals. Great witnesses to have.
Okay.
Love that.
I'm not saying that all criminals are liars.
No. And I'm not
but
saying that
like, it is a wild to me that you're like, let me take these guys because testimony like that or evidence like that immediately becomes tainted if you are offering a deal of some sort, right? So if they went to those guys and they were like, well, I know we got you on these robberies, but like, if you help us out with this other thing, like, we might be able to get you a deal.
I think you may be right.
Oh my God.
This is what happened. So they're out trying to rob this metal place. And Bello, who it seems like Bradley was more the career criminal and Bello was just kind of the lookout. Bradley's like, trying to pick the lock. And Bello is like looking around and sees this white car in front of the bar and is kind of looking. And then he hears 3 or 4 loud bangs. And then he sees 2 guys come out of the bar with the guns and like get in the car and drive off. So he went into the bar, which I'm like, bad plan. So not only does he see, he's like, oh wow, everybody's dead in here, but he takes the opportunity to rob the cash register of $60.
Okay.
So again, these are the witnesses. These are the witnesses.
I am okay.
Like, I'm not.
I feel like if somebody is willing to tell you that they went to a full-on murder scene and then stole money from the cash register after the fact, like, that they would be a more likely witness or a more likely suspect.
Right.
Because it's like, so what, you just stumbled upon all these murders?
I think they did it, to be honest.
I could see that because it just in terms of the evidence that you've presented, like, and that they had, like, it seems more likely that the person who took the money out of the fucking till
like,
is the one that did
over,
the murder.
People,
wow, this is weird. Yeah. I mean, since everyone's just asleep, I might as well take all the money from the,
Right. And like, again, it is dark. It's like really early in the morning. You're in front of like this dark bar, but he was like oh, the two men I saw were absolutely Artis and Carter.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you know that? There is no way.
Yeah.
But it was all they had.
Especially after somebody who literally got shot by these guys said
no, this is not the guys.
No. Are these two witnesses, are they also black? No. These two white guys.
Right.
Okay.
So that's all they had. So they charged Carter and Artis with first-degree murder.
Okay.
The case went to trial on April 7th, 1967, and it took 7 weeks for the all-white jury to come to their decision, which was life imprisonment for both.
Okay.
Guilty.
Okay.
They did want to do
death penalty?
The death penalty for both, but I think they would have had to do it for both of them, and they didn't want to give the death penalty to the younger one.
Yeah.
There's a quote.
So
they said, "We didn't want to kill the kid."
Interesting.
Which is like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
interesting. So it was like an all or nothing situation, huh?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so this is Carter. I think Carter's kind of a badass. So this is not his first rodeo. He's been in prison before. When he arrived at Trenton State Prison, he was like, so I'm not wearing the uniform. I'm not working in the prison. I'm not doing anything. And I'm not eating the food. And if you want to fight me, you can literally go ahead. Like, you can catch me in Madison Square Garden, bitch.
Wow.
So he did.
I mean, that's like the verbal equivalent of punching the biggest guy in the face.
I love it. He's already quiet quitting prison, which I think is iconic as fuck. So he was so upset. He did have a wife and a baby daughter, and they wanted to come and visit him because they believed him, that he didn't do it, but he would only let them come and visit once a month because he was like, I don't want you to have to come here.
Yeah. Which I think is a pretty common thing, like relatively common, where it's just like, I don't want my kids growing up in the visiting room.
Right.
Yeah.
And then something sad happened in prison where he had like, it's 60s and they're assholes, so I don't know, but he kept reporting something was wrong with his eye. His eye hurt, and they put off going to the hospital for it, and he ended up losing sight in his eye because of it, which meant he was like, well, now what am I trying to get out for?
Right.
Because now I can't box.
Right.
So sad.
Yeah.
So it ended up being one of his former like boxing buddies from the army who read about it in the paper, and he was like, that guy's not a murderer. That's stupid. And he kind of like riled up the investigation.
Okay.
Which was pretty cool.
Okay.
Like, he was the one who was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
And as like a white guy from the army, they were like, oh, hell yeah, we believe you.
Nice.
So you were talking about celebrities coming out in support, which I love. In 1974, the two career criminals, Bellow and Bradley, withdrew their identifications. They were like, we didn't really actually think it was them. The judge, Samuel Larner, denied the motion to try to get that into a new trial. But despite that, there was like a big campaign. Muhammad Ali sent his support to the campaign. He publicly wished Carter good luck on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And Bob Dylan has a song called Hurricane that's about him, because that's his boxing nickname. So that's like a legit, he was
that's very cool.
Yeah. And he performed the song at the prison.
Yeah.
Which was
very
really
cool
for him, which was super cool.
Very cool.
So when they were doing the retrial, one of the big things was that the career criminals Bellow and Bradley had lied. And they were trying to make deals with prosecutors. So the detective played one of the tapes of the interrogations of Bellow, and then you could hear the cops being like, so we're going to make certain promises to you if you say this. So like encouraging them
straight up on tape
to lie. Oh,
that's wild.
But the judge again denied it and was like, no, I don't think so. So they were trying to figure out how to get like this second. This is legal stuff, so it's super confusing. So they did do the second trial where pretty much all of the evidence that was brought forward was dismissed. They determined that the two career criminals were lying.
Okay.
And they were trying to like re-sentence them and just be like, no, still jail. But he ended up getting released on bail And then this is the part that I think is confusing because you'll be able to help me. In 1985, Carter's attorneys filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus in federal court.
Okay.
So they granted that. The district attorney for New Jersey granted that and was like, yeah, obviously this was because of racism, essentially. You had no real evidence. And Carter was freed without bail in November 1985.
Okay.
Sorry, the whole thing, all of the notes that I had were super legal stuff. And I was like, I don't understand.
No, it's cool.
They had him released on bail. The prosecutors were trying to get him back in bail the whole time. You were talking about your case. They were like, okay, you can be out of jail while we figure this out. These prosecutors were kind of doing the same thing where they were trying to still get him locked up during this time where they were figuring all this shit out. But he was able to stay out of prison, which is good.
Are you wondering about the writ of habeas corpus? Is that what you're
I don't
about?
really understand.
So basically,
I know there was a second trial, but I was just getting confused.
Yeah. So basically, a writ of habeas corpus is an application for the courts to determine if a detention is lawful or not. So
can it overturn?
Well, because the courts came out and said, hey, all this evidence is actually moot, right? And because
they really had
Did they remand it back down for a retrial? Is that what the thing was?
Yes.
So basically, when they had, it almost sends everything back to the beginning. And because they did not have the evidence to actually arrest him, his detention would then be unlawful, right?
Got it.
So
it's kind of null and void.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Kind of. So it basically goes to the court to say, hey, you've now told us that because this evidence is moot and they are requesting a retrial, but he was arrested based on this evidence. His detention is now unlawful. Can you find that it's now unlawful and release him while we await for whatever? It's basically a way to determine if a detention is lawful.
I'm so glad to have you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Guys, she's a professional.
Because if they
and I'm just her friend. Okay?
Because if they have, if that's the evidence that he was originally arrested, they have to have cause to arrest you.
Right. And so they're saying since there was no cause, this doesn't make sense.
And
so
a retrial resets everything, essentially. It's almost like that first trial just never happened.
Etch a sketch.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That
do a little piece of legal knowledge with Vicky.
Knowledge with Vicky. V for Vicky. My toddler son calls her Vicky, which is really, really cute.
Yeah.
So they could have, after the habeas corpus and after he was released, they could have it, and they kind of wanted to try them both because they both got released.
Okay.
To try them both a third time, but decided not to. And the judge was like, fucking stop. Stop it. So the judge finally granted a motion to dismiss, which was no more legal proceedings.
Yeah.
So Carter, this is another thing about him not being the perfect victim. When he was released on bail, there was a bail bondswoman, Carolyn Kelly, who kind of helped him get out, and she raised funds for the second trial because they were trying to get it.
Sure.
And when he was out on bail, he beat the shit out of her, through I think he was probably drunk.
Okay.
And it was apparently about a hotel bill. I'm not saying it's fine for him to have done that, but I'm hello.
Well, this is one of these things people can be innocent and still be really
dicks.
shitty people. Yeah.
And she declined he's
you cannot be a murderer and also be a shitty human being.
Right. The two things are not mutually exclusive in ways.
Yeah.
So and she was like, I'm not gonna pursue charges. He fucked her up pretty bad.
Wow.
And she was like, I don't want to press charges because jail is not the place for Ruben. He needs treatment. I don't want to do anything to hurt him.
Yeah. I just want to say
He also cheated on his wife.
Okay, that is all really interesting to me because now again, that would have been when did he get out? When did they have the retrial? Was it in the 80s?
Yes, 85.
Okay. Because I think in my research, I'm pretty sure it was 20 years in jail.
Yes.
That I find really interesting because in the 80s, we did not know about CTE, right? Which is...
That's what I wonder too.
Yeah. And CTE, especially in boxers and football players and people who have this head-to-head contact and intense head injuries, like CTE has been attributed to impulsive behavior and anger management issues. Like you saw that in like Aaron Hernandez, right?
My gosh, yes.
He like the anger issues from people with like it is a factor. So I would find it interesting if that I'm not saying that's what it was 100%, but like that kind of reads CTE to me, especially for as long as he was boxing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so too. And I would be super interested to see that as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I wonder if they would get a hold of his brain.
Well, he got cremated.
Oh, damn. Never mind then.
It's a little too late.
Because that's the other thing, too, is like CTE can't be diagnosed until after you're dead.
Right, which is crazy.
When they can take your brain out.
You know what's crazy? I'm like not the sports girl, but I saw that they have a new thing for football helmets that's like a little foam thing to put on it. And I saw an interview of this one guy, like a famous player, who was like, I'm not wearing it.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, why wouldn't you wear it?
No, longtime football players are very anti CTE prevention.
I think that's very silly.
Yeah.
Ladies
I
and
agree.
gentlemen.
Also, that's a
I know.
complicated issue.
That's another story.
Yeah,
I think
complicated
that's very
issue.
silly.
It is.
If I could
I agree.
Prevent myself from killing people by wearing a little more padding, I would do
Yeah,
it.
but there's a lot, honestly, there's a lot of athletes who do not believe that CTE is real.
Oh, okay. Well, you're an athlete, not a doctor, so maybe listen to doctors. So Carter, the end. So Carter, obviously tired of America's bullshit, moved to Toronto. He became a Canadian citizen.
Nice.
And he was the executive director for the Association in Defense of the Wrongly Convicted. From 1993 until 2005. Quick little tidbit here. This is kind of sad. Again, complicated fucking case. Carter resigned when the AIDWYC declined to support. They were mad at him because they appointed a judge from this lady who had been a prosecutor who had prosecuted this famous Canadian case of this guy called Paul Morin.
Okay.
He was convicted of the 1984 rape and murder. Sorry guys, this is gross. Of his 9-year-old neighbor Christine Jessup.
Okay.
And it was he was white, I think, but yeah, he was. But there was no evidence. He went to prison and he was eventually exonerated by DNA evidence, but it had nothing to do with this prosecutor. And actually in 2009, he would take his own life, even though he got out of jail and everything. It was obviously really tough for him.
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything at all.
Yeah.
He was totally innocent.
Yeah.
And the AIDWYC is I guess kind of Canada's Innocence Project, kind of a similar thing, but they helped appoint this lady to a judge when she oversaw this case of this wrongful conviction. So he was like, I'm not hanging out. Obviously that would be super special to him.
Yeah.
Super significant, I mean. So he was like, fuck you.
Yeah.
So he was like, no thanks.
Huh.
No thanks. Carter often served as a motivational speaker. He received the Abolition Awards from Death Penalty Focus in 1996. And eventually, because he couldn't box anymore because of his eye, which is unfortunate, but he did do a lot of activist work, and he seemed to have kept on his best behavior, although getting married and divorced, and I think both marriages probably ended in infidelity. The first one definitely did. The second one, I just kind of think so.
Yeah.
So, he was slaying it a little bit. But my favorite detail of this case is at the end of his life, he did get prostate cancer, which is not my favorite detail. This next part is my favorite detail.
My favorite detail, prostate cancer.
This horrible
Way to
yay.
Way to lead with that.
Oh my God. But the person who took care of him in his old age was none other than John Artis.
Okay.
Who
Interesting.
would move in with him because he took care of him and he helped him throughout the trial and everything.
That's cool.
Because he was so much younger.
Yeah,
and
that's
a babe
cool.
in the woods. So he took care of him, and he was the one to finally announce on April 20th, 2014, that Carter, at the age of 76, had succumbed to his illness. And they couldn't test his CTE-riddled brain because his ashes were scattered in Cape Cod.
Oh.
And that is the story of how we have the same brain and do the same cases.
My. Wow. I know. I'm pretty sure when I told you what the topic was, I was like, well, as long as you don't pick one out of Japan, it's probably fine.
So funny. You literally did. But we've done this a bunch of times where I'm like, wait, are we both doing one
Everything's
out of, like, New
connected.
York?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, before you decide to get into boxing, why don't you check out this podcast?
Murder Road Trip is a true crime podcast where I, your host Haley, discuss murder cases in my car, aka the Mobile Beats Lab. Join me and my partner in crime, H.H. Gnomes, on the road. There will be games, mixtapes, and snacks as I make the research journey to murder scenes around the world. Make sure to check your back seat, and I'll see you at the next rest stop.
All right, girl, that has been our episode.
It sure has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts before we finish
I
up?
am the final thought.
Oh my God.
This has been a little bit of an interesting November. I think.
Yeah.
We're in the age of Aquarius,
Yeah.
so it's going to be.
We're not going to talk about it. I'm just
interesting
pretending
20
nothing's
years.
happening.
I'm just talking about the age of Aquarius. It's going to be the next 20 years.
I hope it
so-
all burns down.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, that's where I'm
that's
at.
what the age of Aquarius
Anyway.
is. It was the age of Aquarius in the French Revolution.
This is the dawning of the age. On that note, our sound and editing is by Tiff Fullman. Our music is by Jason Zashevsky, the Enigma. This has been the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. We will see you in 2 weeks like normal.
Yeah.
Adios.
Bye.
10 young women and left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway. It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.